The Louisville and Nashville Railroad traversed the southeast United States for over 100 years. Starting before the Civil War, they eventually built a railroad empire. Hauling freight, along with both black and white passengers, they generated millions of dollars of revenue every year. During war times, they carried soldiers and equipment. Train cars often functioned as moving services over which to scrawl propaganda. During World War II, the L&N Employees magazine did their part to stop Nazi spies in the U.S. The L&N employed thousands of workers. Unfortunately, African Americans were unfairly discriminated against by corporate and union leaders. There was a systematic segregation of work. They acted to limit African Americans to menial jobs. These patterns of discrimination and racial stereotyping are exemplified by this cartoonish depiction of an African American youth. This was the cover photo of the Employee magazine in 1925. African Americans were underrepresented in the L&M board of directors, all of whom were white. Almost every aspect of life working for the L&M was segregated. Social clubs, like the one pictured here, were strictly separated by race. Sports leagues, like bowling and baseball, were avidly documented by the magazine, but African American leagues were almost never mentioned. Pictured here is the son of an L&N employee, his winning team documented in 1960. African American children were never recognized. The Employee magazine not only ignored African Americans, but also portrayed them as uneducated and unfit for qualified employment. This dialect example comes from 1925. Even when African Americans like Isham Rollins and Link Turner were congratulated for their years of loyal service, they were still identified by their race. Martha Fife, an employee well known for her hospitality, was still categorized as an example of colored ingenuity. Charles Cowherd, a local sculptor and employee, became a hero when he saved the life of a coworker. Even Cowherd, an artist and a hero, was signaled out for his race. Obituaries from the 1920s to the 50s also differentiate African Americans from their white coworkers. This rule even applied to soldiers who died in service to their country. Shown here is an obituary for Felix Jones that appeared in the Employee magazine during World War II. Time and time again, the railroad acted condescendingly even as they praised African Americans. Here, two employees dress up in blackface, joking about racial stereotypes at a company event. This picture was published in the Employee magazine in August of 1948. The magazine continued to intentionally emphasize racial stereotypes. Over time, African American employees built up their own community based upon their shared experiences on the railroad. Clubs and sports leagues formed.
Play ball!
This is a rare photo of an African American baseball team from 1925. Shown here, from a private collection of photographs, is an L&N employee party in 1938. The picture is entitled The Colored Employee Safety Party. It is well documented that African Americans practiced agency in safe spaces like churches. But it is also important to acknowledge that African Americans also practiced agency in difficult and segregated spaces like the L&N Railroad.